You won't believe which heartthrob from the golden age of Hollywood secretly dated two of the biggest gay icons of his time, and kept it hidden for decades. Long before celebrities were posting selfies or coming out on their own terms, Troy Donahue, the poster boy of 1950s and 60s romance films, was living a life split in two. On screen, he was the dreamy, all-American guy every teenage girl had a crush on. Off-screen, a world of heartbreak, addiction, lost fame, and secrets he couldn't share until it was nearly too late. Born Merle Johnson Jr. in New York City in 1936, Troy was raised with all the advantages: a corporate executive dad, a stage actress mom, and a front-row seat to ambition. He studied journalism at Columbia, but Hollywood called loudly, and he listened. Warner Brothers gave him a new name, a new image, and soon, his face was splashed across teen magazines and movie posters nationwide. You might remember him from A Summer Place, that steamy beachside melodrama that made him a star overnight. Audiences couldn't get enough of him. That sensitive stare, that blonde hair blowing in the wind. He wasn't just acting in love stories, he was the love story. For a while, he was everywhere. Parrish, Susan Slade, Rome Adventure, Palm Springs Weekend. Film after film. Always the sweet, brooding guy caught up in a swirl of emotion. He was America's dream boyfriend, the ideal man for an era still basking in post-war optimism. At his peak, he got more fan mail than almost anyone on the Warner Brothers lot. But fame is fickle. The late 60s rolled in with new faces, new voices, and a whole new vibe. The clean-cut matinee idol thing? Not so hot anymore. Grit replaced glamour, anti-heroes replaced golden boys, and Troy, stuck with his outdated image, struggled to keep up. His offers dried up, his star began to fade, and so did his stability. Behind that dazzling smile was a man unraveling. He battled alcoholism, financial ruin, and at one point, he was literally living in his car. Imagine going from red carpets to sleeping behind the wheel of a beat-up sedan. But here's where it gets real. He owned it. Troy got help. He joined AA. He got sober. He found his way back, not to the spotlight exactly, but to something even better: peace. He started popping up again. Guest spots on shows like Chips and The Love Boat. Even a self-aware cameo in John Waters' Crybaby that made fans nostalgic and new audiences curious. At fan conventions, people lined up not just for autographs, but to say, "You helped me through my teenage years." That mattered to him. Now, his love life? That was another roller coaster. He married 4 times, actresses, a secretary, even a reclusive partner later in life, but none of them stuck. Some of the marriages ended quickly, others messily. There were lawsuits, accusations, long nights, and shattered dreams. One fiancée even sued him for assault. Behind the scenes, things were far from the Hollywood fantasy. But the real jaw-dropper came years later, in hushed interviews during the 90s when Troy finally opened up about something he had never dared to say during his prime. He had been in relationships with men. Real, emotional, loving connections. Kept in the shadows because being out in the 50s wasn't just risky, it was career suicide. He specifically mentioned 2 huge names: Anthony Perkins and Rock Hudson. With Perkins, it wasn't just a fling. It was intimate, emotional, and heartbreaking. They'd meet at secret parties, sneak off to quiet places, sit in a parked car by the ocean just talking. "We always had to pretend," Troy once said. He wore the same mask I did. With Hudson, it was different, more guarded, but there was something there. Troy described it as moments of silent understanding. He had it the hardest, he said. One slip and it would all come crashing down. They were men trapped in an image. Chiseled jaws, charming smiles, leading lady lovers, but none of it real. Troy didn't share this part of his story for shock value. It wasn't gossip. It was truth, finally spoken aloud. For a generation of actors forced to live in hiding, it was a small crack of light breaking through a very long shadow. Toward the end of his life, things began to slow down. He'd reconnected with a woman named Young Chow, an opera singer who, by all accounts, brought him calm and love in his final chapter. He also learned he had a son, Sean, from a brief relationship in the 60s. They reconnected when Sean was already an adult, and Troy was able to find some measure of closure, even joy, in finally having that bond. Then, in August 2001, he had a heart attack. He was rushed to the hospital in Santa Monica, where so many Hollywood stories seemed to end, and underwent emergency surgery. It worked, for a moment. But just 2 days later, another heart attack hit. He didn't survive. Troy Donahue died at 65, a far cry from the golden-haired dreamboat of a summer place, but in a way, far more real. His death marked the end of an era, and the closing of a life lived under bright lights, dark shadows, and eventually, honest reflection. So here's the thing. Troy Donahue wasn't just a teen idol. He was a man who faced his demons, told his truth, and found peace in a world that once demanded silence. That makes him a legend, not just for what he did on screen, but for what he endured behind it. If stories like this move you, if you believe that peeling back Hollywood's curtain still matters, hit that like button, drop a comment, and make sure you're subscribed for more untold tales from the golden age of the silver screen.